So if you're going to build a community, that's a two-way thing, not a one-way thing. They need to be able to ask you questions and you connect both ways. But really it's on a deeper level. So it's not about what you do, it's about why you do it.
Richard Sutcliffe, founder of Passenger Clothing, a brand that started in a camper van and went on to redefine what it means to build a purpose-driven business.
I didn't know anything about business, branding, how big things could go. Very naive. So it was never about, I know what we can do or we can't do, or we've got the financial backing to be able to do something. Didn't know anything. The reality was, as I was an electrician back then, and it just wasn't fulfilling me creatively, emotionally, purposely driven. I wanted to wake up and give a shit. That's the reality of it.
Welcome to Screw It, Just Do It, the show for those who decided to screw it and just did it. This is the podcast that brings you face to face with the entrepreneurs and business rebels who threw caution to the wind and built something extraordinary.
When you said lifestyle business, I always remember having this conversation with Julian Hearn from Huel, and him saying like he'd sold a business for, I think, single 7 figures. And then he decided he wanted a lifestyle business, and he was down here in Bournemouth, and he started Huel. First year did 750 grand, and he was just like that. I don't think this is going to be a lifestyle business. And then fast forward a couple of years, it was 50 million, and now I think it's north of 500 million. But can you remember then, like the exact moments, like where were you with Alexa? What were you doing at that time when you made that decision?
What, to start a business? I mean, I would say there's two sides to this. So yeah, I believe at this time we were in core. We used to surf and get in our van a lot, and that's kind of the reasoning behind it, was to try and blend those lifestyle balances. But we're in Canada, so I have my wife's family Canadian, and we're in the Pacific Northwest in the waves and trees. Hence my obsession with waves and trees, and the ethos and the visual identity of the brand. We were just like, yeah, this is what we need to do, and that was became really apparent, and that element around escapism. But so that was the idea, to create something, and that was the idea, to just create this lifestyle. Maybe have a shop, you have your dog, you can bring the kids through. Really, I didn't know anything about business, branding, how big things could go. Very naive, literally, as an electrician, so I had an itch out to scratch. So it was never about, I know what we can do or we can't do, or we've got the financial backing to be able to do something. Didn't know anything. But the next penny dropped was, so we had our daughter born in she was born in 2017, and she was born with a medical condition. She's doing well now, but she was in hospital for 100 days, and the prognosis was she might not make it. It was brutal. And at that point, literally at that point, Passenger was starting to take off, and I remember it was sort of September of 2017. We'd just sort of gone out into store with Surf Dome and Anne's Cottage as two of the bigger retailers. We were D2C focused, but you could see the traction the community was building, how much it was resonating, and obviously it was a lovely sound to hear your Shopify orders pinging through, ping ping. It became a bit of a distraction in hospitals. We had to turn it off. It was another distraction, but it was that point of time we're like, holy shit, what we have created really does have legs. It really does have traction. So it led me to ask two different questions. Was one, obviously, I'm trying to deal with my life and with my daughter in hospital. And at that point as well, my dog was dying. So we've taken the dog with us. He passed away. It's brutal. It kicked the shit out of me for many years. But it made me realize, one, what we've created is very powerful and really does have legs. Two, I need to bring in the right people that can help scale it and unlock its true potential. You could, and a lot of people say, oh, that's very intelligent and that's very emotionally aware. I don't think it was that deep. I think that there was a point that's like, I've put so much in, I just can't let it fail. I think that's, if I'm being truthfully honest, but it was the right choice, and it's taught me a lot about myself, controlling ego, and it was the right choice at the right time. It did take me a long time to find the right people who would come in with the right mentality, the right fit, and the right understanding, because we were creating a new category, escapism, and we were creating a brand that can ebb and flow in everything that means. And it was new, and people was just like, I don't understand it, I don't get what you mean. But it went in the right direction. But it was brilliant that I was able to find those right people.
I love that, creating a new category called escapism. I absolutely love that. And at that time, There's quite a few things there I want to unpick. But at that time, when you envisaged that, how broad was that? Did that, and I'm thinking, for people who want to escape, for people who want to, as we were talking off air, me heading to the Alps to go snowboarding for the weekend, people who want to take the van and go down to Cornwall and surf or whatever. Yeah, how broad was that at that stage, Rich?
So escapism, and we like to sort of tap into meaningful escapism because it gives it context. But that was from the early days when we set Passenger up. I want to create a category and I want to put a brand in it, and escapism was that category. And that category is huge. It doesn't have any boundaries, and that was what was really exciting to me. Is because it's inherently in every single one of us. But you ask 10 different people, you'll get 10 different answers to what escapism means to them. But it's all about what it means to you at that time. So you have everyday escapism, which is listening to some music, getting lost in a book. Watching TV is a perfect example that everybody does on a daily basis. And it's not about being negative, it's about being positive. And we were talking about this yesterday. So as an example, wouldn't it be amazing if we had time to be able to enjoy our garden, plant veg, and see that reward? I mean, that is pretty, it doesn't sound that sexy. It isn't that big a deal, but it is quite cool and it's rewarding and therapeutic. So the idea is it's not about trying to escape. It's about creating space to escape that's positive and fulfills you. And you can look at those everyday decisions. And then there's sort of the marketing elements where we probably get a bit more behind, and you're getting lost in a van, going for a trip, going for a surf, going for a hike, going snowboarding, skiing, just going and exploring and seeing things new. They're all elements of escapism, and really what we're trying to do is to say there is no boundaries here. Obviously, we're going to talk about certain elements more because they resonate and inspire, but the one thing we can all agree on, and the one consistent I think you'd get out of a peer group of 100, 1,000 people, is that we all look for escapism on a daily basis. And it's not negative. That's the hardest bit, is to create the connotation and the understanding that escapism isn't negative. It's a positive. You're trying to create that pocket of time and space to enjoy the things you enjoy.
Absolutely. Kind of fits into my mantra this year of doing more of what you love and less of what you don't love. That whole feeling of waking up in the morning and not actually looking forward to what you're going to do. Well, what's the point of living at that point? And like you say, escapism, there is no ceiling on it, is there? It's whatever it can be. How old was your daughter at that time, Rich?
She was born in 2017. So as soon as she was born, she was whisked off. She's 8 now. But she was born and she was whisked off, and it was it's very dark and very black. And they told us that she wouldn't make it. The prognosis was the bedside manner was quite poor, but we did learn, and it did to put things into perspective, that no matter how hard things are for you, there's always somebody that's worse off. And we found that, and we saw that, and it's a mantra that helps you put things into perspective. But yeah, it kicked our asses for many years. And trying to deal with the outcome of that, and always trying to think that there's a bit of anxiety that have they got it right or wrong, etc. But yeah, that was a hard period, but it enabled you to make some pretty hard decisions because you had no other choice, to be honest.
And when you had that initial kind of inspiration, you and Alexa, and you said she was Canadian, and I was brought up in Canada, but
she's English. But her dad lived there for 15 years, and so we'd go over there a lot. And her stepmom's Canadian.
Yeah, so again, I used to go over my parents split up. I used to go every summer and used to have that. I kind of look back now, idyllic time. You'd have a log cabin by the lake, and you'd have like Indian canoes, and you'd have the fire and all that kind of stuff. Was there any thoughts at that time to launch a business in Canada, or was it always the thought to come back to the UK, to Dorset?
Always, I think, because it's just what we knew, and that doesn't mean we haven't had thoughts that, hey, well, maybe we would set something up in Canada. But then having our daughter and the medical complexities she has and everything that needed, that quickly was something that was just never going to be an option. I know we'd always thought about it after, hey, we could go and do that. Wouldn't that be amazing? But so our father-in-law so my father-in-law, Alexa, my co-founder and wife's dad, moved back with Tara, her stepmom, soon as River was born, really, and they realised the difficulties that she had. So they've moved back, and So it's, and I mean, they have aspirations to move back because they miss it. And if you were to name a country that basically pioneers outdoor escapism, it's
Yeah,
Canada.
yeah, 100%.
It's all there, like you just said. You can. So I love the Pacific Northwest, but I also love the mountains. So Pacific Northwest, you get lost in those epic trees, the hikes, the surf. Oh, it's just beautiful, rugged wildlife, and then you can go up to the mountains. You've got log cabins. You just, it's just all there.
And when you mentioned the word ego earlier in that conversation as well, can you talk a little bit more about that? Where was that coming from, and what did you do about it?
I mean, this is like, I'm on the journey to understand ego, and I'd say that, like, I think it's a journey we're all on, and we're all trying to understand. And where I am today and what I've learned is, I think everybody has an ego. It's just about how controlling you are that ego, so that you can either make it positive or negative. And I think a founder's job is to understand ego, because there's no getting around it. So, and somebody taught me this, and I think it's brilliant, is a sign of success as a founder is making yourself redundant in your own business. Um, and I actually get on stage and often talk about this to the team, to say, really, reality is, if I was to go for a job in any one of your roles, I probably wouldn't get your job. You're better than me at your job. And I actually think that's a positive, but it's taken me a long, long time to be able to be comfortable with that, saying it and actually really, truly believe in it. So you work on it every day, as to say, it's not about me, because a founder has a vision. It's a team that executes it. So what is special about Passenger is, if you were to cut Passenger open, or you cut the staff open, their blood or their veins read Passenger like a stick of rock now. Like, they truly believe it. They're passionate around it. They inspire me. Like, they are in essence of what makes it what it is today. And it's really important that if businesses are going to go from startup and to grow and create positive culture, and to really drive purpose, like, they are the ones that do it. It's not a founder anymore. It's certainly not CEOs or the board. It's the actual people that make a difference, that make it happen every single day. And it's your job as a founder to make them feel comfortable, inspire, lead, and guide them to do that, be the best version of themselves.
Yeah, and I personally had a great background in that. Worked for Virgin Atlantic for 17 years, and it's crazy to think, and I'm sure Richard does know this, but people still talk about, even though they left the business 15, 20 years ago, they not only talk about, they still meet up. People still meet up, have reunions and stuff like that. And it's like, I wonder how many other businesses, do Microsoft do that? Do Amazon do that? I'm not sure they entirely do, but those businesses where the staff buy into the purpose and the vision of that brand,
They make it what it is. So one thing I'm really passionate around, and I actually did this on stage recently, and it just came to me. And every business gets to a point when you're growing fast, and you've just got to look at it and make sure that the way I like to use it is focusing on the inputs, because the outputs are success, growth, profit. And when you get into difficult periods, which happens, and things don't always go as perfectly to plan, you need to then be able to start focusing on the inputs, which will then lead to drive the outputs. And to put that into perspective, so, like, people want to understand, why is Passion successful? It's growing, it's profitable. Well, that's an output. The input there for me is brand. And everyone go, well, yeah, brands make good businesses. And they're like, right, well, people make good brands. So if you invest and you focus on those inputs, and as an example, if you have a team that's just so passionate, they'll show up 200% every single day. You won't have to ask them to do it. They'll do it. They'll actually drag you along with them. That's the environment you want to build, because then those inputs there will drive those positive outputs. And that for me is, and I believe that, like, in my core, in my bones, that is what my job is.
A lot of, I would say, overwhelmingly, over like 8.5 years of chatting to founders on this podcast, and other years of live events, overwhelmingly, the biggest challenge that most founders will say to me is finding those people and then keeping those people. Where do you find your people, and what do you look for?
Do you know what? If I'm truthfully honest, everyone says, oh, you must have done an amazing hiring process. I think we've done a good job. It could be better. I mean, when I was hiring, I didn't know what I was looking for, really. And I didn't know, like, the questions I should be asking now. But I would truthfully say they found us. That's probably an easy way of saying it. And if you create the right environment that your optics are seen, you're going to attract the right people. But you've got to make sure that the how you operate inside of a business meets the optics of outside, because otherwise you're going to have disconnect and a high turnover of staff. And nobody has it right. Nobody has it perfect. But if you kind of put your heart, if you kind of hand up to heart and say, I'll do my very best, and I want to create an environment that you will believe in, because it's the only way this is going to go. That is the best way to do it. And they will just find you.
And have you reached the stage then, Rich, where you can replace yourself then?
Absolutely. My job really now is to just make sure that it's operating to a point, and I mean from a cultural perspective, from a vision, from a strategy. I'm no longer needed. That's hard. That still hurts to me to say it, but that should be the goal. That should be the vision and the goal of every founder. You just have to do a lot of soul searching in that. That doesn't mean I don't care, but that's the only way it'll get there, because you have to operate now. And I operate with the team as a capacity of noses in, fingers out. And we have to have this good balance that, like, I'll stick my beak in and I'll try and make sure we're guiding you, but I can't do your job now because, one, you do it better than me, and two, it's just not good for culture. I obviously have to, if there's a few scabs, I have to pick at them. I have to try and make sure that I ask the hard questions, and my job isn't to have the answers. It truly is to just help ask the questions and guide. And obviously there are some deliverables, so it's not all just fluff. But an element of it has to be a bit of fluff, because it's the only way you'll create that culture and a successful environment.
In theory then, for yourself, Rich, could you ultimately work from anywhere? You could take that escapism to the nth degree.
We do have a pretty good remote hybrid business. That has its challenges, that, like, obviously you want to bring connection together as a team. You want to make sure you get the right output levels. So it's a balance. It's to and fro. You make products, so that really needs to be done in person. But then you have to make sure that you're setting those meetups up for success, so then you can go away and action it. Me personally, it's probably a little bit harder to not be around because of my role and the inspiration I'm trying to drive. So it's finding that right balance, that sometimes, I can be anywhere. And actually, sometimes it's quite good to be able to show that, like, hey, this is the type of people we are. So if we're going to work for a brand like Passenger and we're not going to live it, we might as well all turn the lights off and go home, because I believe we failed. But then also turning up in the right way to try and bring inspiration face to face is also positive. Like, we are people, we need connection. But it's balance, and nobody's got it right, and we're still figuring it out as we go through it.
I was chatting to Ted Baker founder Ray Kelvin recently, and his first product was a shirt. What was Passenger's first product, Reg?
It was a T-shirt, and it's on the wall actually. And so it was two T-shirts actually. So one of those was a T-shirt with our old A symbol, which is very similar to, you can see behind me, and we plonked the map of the Pacific Northwest over the top. And the second one was actually, this is an interesting one, it's a cabin from the Arctic Circle that I took a photo of when I came across it. And the reason that's important is back in, I think it was around 2010, I trekked the Arctic Circle for 8 days. And the first cabin that we managed to find was like, hey, we're going to live tonight. We get the finest cabin, and it was all okay, because it was off grid, and we were just with a polka. But the beauty of that is that trip there made me realize my lostness, like, what is it I was searching for? And it was escapism. I was in that moment, and that's when it dawned on me, that trip, what it is I was trying to understand. And then back in 2012, like, cool, let's build a brand from it.
That's so cool. I love that. And those early days, right, were they as romantic as they sound hearing you now, or was it more blood and guts?
It was a shit show, like, no doubt about it. I didn't really have a life for 8 years, because I'd be getting up at 5 a.m. and I'm chatting to suppliers in the Far East, trying to learn production. I'm trying to learn marketing, brand. My wife's working, we're bootstrapping, evenings and weekends we're working. We're just trying to set it all up. We were failing and learning at the same time. If we'd go away, we'd work in the van. We had our dog Ralph with us, who was still with us then, and we'd sit in, like, I remember going for a surf in Cornwall. And then the Sunday was blown out, so we drove into Dartmoor and just got under the cover in a car park and just basically designed. It was a hustle. Like, it was amazing, because it taught me a lot about myself. I didn't know what I personally was capable of, But I don't think I've got the beans in the tank to do that again, because it was like, you've got to be all in 1,000%, otherwise it just won't work. But if you're passionate around it, and it's not like a job, where we looked at it, it was like, this was passion was either going to be successful, or I was probably going to die trying, because I could not stop. I was addicted.
So you're not going to be one of these founders, and I don't think you see it that often, but I've seen it a few times with people I've had on the show have gone and created, these amazing, 10 figure brands even, and they decide to go and do it again 5 or 6 years later. But that doesn't sound like that's the.
I don't think I could. But that doesn't mean I wouldn't want to help and get involved with somebody that might have what I don't have, and I can bring the knowledge that I now have and the experiences and what I've learned. Now, that's definitely not, but it would have to be, for me, purpose driven. It would have to have a responsible edge, because it just doesn't make sense for me otherwise anymore. And it would have to be really cultural led.
What kept you going then when it felt like it wasn't working, when you were like failing on a regular basis? And ultimately now you obviously know by, the faster you fail, the quicker you're going to get to your goal, right? But at the time, it just feels bloody horrendous.
So I think back in the early days, ego would have kept me going, because we were financially all in. I'm quite happy to admit this, but I think we had loans of up to about £60,000. That was back in 2012. That's a lot of money back then. And that's money we didn't have. We borrowed it. Everything by the house was on the line. So from an ego perspective, if it failed, we're in trouble. No doubt about it. So that kept me going then. But as the brand scaled, and today, if I'm asked that question, which I have been actually, what keeps me here today, it's the team that we've built. Like what really excites me is the connection and the community we've built, especially the community of people in the business. So we're close to about 90 staff now, and they're all very like-minded people. There's people all over the world now that talk to each other, become friends. And to think that like something I created in my loft around the corner was able to be the catalyst to bring like-minded people together, like that's something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, no. So you should be. And actually, as you mentioned the word, how difficult is it to build a community? Because you talk about, like, say, the 90 people in the business, but exponentially multiply that by however many figures you want, and how many people have bought into the brand and the vision and the purpose of the brand. Not the fact that they just want to wear another cap or another t-shirt, but they've specifically chosen yours over fill in the blanks. I won't name any other brands, but people might be able to work it out. But ultimately, building community is not an easy thing to do, right? If it was easy, everyone would have a community, but they don't, right? So what have you got right there, and what has been the hardest parts on trying to build that community?
So if you're going to build a community, that's a two-way thing, not a one-way thing. So they need to be able to ask you questions, and you connect both ways. But really, it's on a deeper level. So it's not about what you do, it's about why you do it. So there's a Simon Sinek, if anybody knows him out there, just love that guy. And he's had a real inspiration on me and how I've seen things. One day I'd love to meet him, because I've mentioned him so many times. But that, in essence, is really it. It's about why you do it, not what you do. And the output will be successful community, and hopefully a profitable business that is adding value to people, and it's honest and authentic. To build a community, you got to be authentic. The bullshit radar on the community is strong. They'll smell it straight away.
And was there like any moment in those early years that you can kind of pinpoint where you thought you'd have to walk away, or were you too far in? As you said, you were 60 grand in, you were emotionally invested, you were financially invested, wasn't an option.
Yeah, many times. I can give you many, many, many times. So we weren't profitable in the beginning, and because I wanted to build a brand, and I wanted to sort of do things maybe a little bit lofty by building a category, and I wasn't a businessman who could go business model first. Like, I wanted it to be lofty, and I wouldn't change that if I did it again. I know there'd be different things. I could avoid some mistakes, but I think that was really important. But like, often you'd get up and be thinking, am I going to be able to pay the lights, keep the lights on Monday? Am I going to be able to pay the team? And many a time I didn't get paid for a period of time, because you got other people that are reliant on you. So that was on many occasions. We've dodged many a bullets. COVID is an example when that came through. If we'd have shipped stock a week earlier, before kind of flags were out, we wouldn't have had stock, and therefore we wouldn't have been able to trade, and we'd have gone into we'd have failed. So that was another bullet dodged. I mean, the working capital requirement for a B2B business, I was always trying to borrow more. I mean, by the end of it, I probably had debt of close to half a million in the early days, just to be able to keep stock turning. It's so I was emotionally, I was deep, but emotionally and financially, and there's always challenges that you have. But I was, like you says, I was probably naive. Naivety was a really big thing, by the way. I don't want to. We've talked about this a lot with some of the team. If I'd have known what I know now, you probably wouldn't do it because you just know all the obstacles. So naivety was a blessing.
Yeah, no, and I always remember asking Jim Cregan that after you sold Jimmy's Iced Coffee, and I just said, if you knowing what you now know, would you do it again? And he went, no chance. And I went, really? You actually surprised me. I thought you might have it in you to go, of course I would. He's like, no, knowing what I know now, I would never have even started.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
So that's a big word, I would say. Naivety is a blessing. Enjoy it while you can, because it allows you, like, because I was an electrician, I hadn't come from the industry. So it's not like we did things differently because we wanted to disrupt. Just didn't know how it was done. So we did it differently not by default. So therefore, and I always say, I just want to fuck shit up, but do it responsibly. And that's kind of what we did, actually. Like, we didn't follow the same status quos. We just didn't. And that's why we're a little bit different, because we had no guidance. Obviously now we've got guardrails to make sure we're a little bit better, but all of this was like alien to me.
What's been like one of the hardest calls you've had to make in staying true to your mission? Have there been elements, opportunities that have come your way that have maybe caused you to kind of stray off that track, or has it been pretty laser focused over the years?
So there's a few sides to that. So I would say the hardest thing we've had to do as a business was letting the US team go, and the UK team that worked with the US. So we just had to when we had to exit the US because of the tariffs and the difficulties, we had a very short period of time to make the decisions. It was the right decision for the business and the brand, but that doesn't make it easy. So that was probably one of the hardest things we've had to do, because passengers always had good news stories going up to that. But it's never been perfect. It's never been straightforward. So we like to work in a sort of 3-year cycles. And when I brought in sort of Justin Stone and John Lane back in, so Justin Stone came on board, John Lane came on board as our CEO. We all agreed that we had a vision of 3 years, and then we like to work in 3-year cycles, because we can make sure that we're all aligned to what we want to do short term and long term. And then you hit that point in time, and then you what do we want to do now, where we want to go. But you'd obviously be chipping away at them all the way through. But when you bring in other people, there's no doubt about it, everybody comes with new ideas. So the hardest bit, I think, for me is because I don't have any experience, and it's like I don't carry a lot of weight, whether because I'm not that type of person, but two, it's not like I've been around and done this before, whereas other people have. So it's quite hard to make sure that you stay true to a vision and a focus when you don't have that clout. And I might not be the best communicator of clarity, because as a founder, you're pretty all over the place. Although I am consistent, I know where my weaknesses are, and I've been trying to work on them. So to try and sort of maintain that vision as you go around and make a few mistakes, bring in certain products, I don't know, go after a position yourself that you know is not correct or quite right, you're trying to bring everyone back together. That's the hardest bit, and I think that's the thing you really have to work at. And as a founder, it's really important, and that's where I'm learning now, is how I can articulate that, how I can get the message across. It's a two-way conversation. It's a challenge and commit. This is the vision. What do we agree? And then keep that rotation flowing through, so the tweaks are natural and they make sense, rather than big pivots just because somebody sees it differently. But we're getting in a really good position. And you have to continuously work at it. Like, if you think it's going to be easy and you think that it's your way or no way, then you're going to be wrong, because you kind of have to believe in yourself and trust yourself, but don't be a dick about it. Really find that really open environment where you can have honest discussions, right and wrong, challenge, and just try and maintain consistency, whatever you do.
Fantastic answer. Tell me what are the weak spots that you're working on then? Give me a couple of those, Rich.
Weak spots. So, firstly, I've got to say, haven't I? There are no weak spots. Passenger's perfect. That's what I've got to say. But the reality is, we all know that doesn't exist. I mean, the macroeconomics at the moment are proving very challenging. So it makes your weak spots quite hard. So, for instance, if you want to be truly purpose led, truly brand led, truly maintain your vision, and not look at commercial opportunities that might drive short-term success because things are hard, that's a weakness, always will be, like trying to balance the commercial opportunities with your long-term vision. And so us being able to say no to all of those commercial opportunities that come through on a daily basis is hard, and it's a distraction and a weakness, and I think that would be apparent in most brands and businesses doing very well. So that would be one weakness.
You've been you've been a B Corp for a while as well, is that right?
So, no, so we're not actually B Corp. So, and the reason we're not B Corp is because we do a lot of different aspects, and we wanted to do things in our own way. So we would probably fit the criteria or most of the criteria instantly for B Corp. But we just focus on some different areas. So, for instance, which I only realised the other day, we have one tree planting partner since 2018. We spent $670,000 with them. I was like, what? Had no idea it was that much. So we planted over like 2.5 million trees now.
2.5 million. That sounds
Yeah,
insane.
yeah. So I went out and seen some of the impacts that we've been working with, and like how it's more than just trees. So you give farmers knowledge, tools, experience. They plant not just trees. Trees are a part of that ecosystem. So a Western world wins because we get it quantified and it's brilliant. But that would only work because these guys are actually doing amazing, and it's a whole mentality and mind shift over there, which I learned. And it was a really proud moment to see the impact, and they're thanking you. And we took photos, took a Polaroid out with us, and got photos with the families that I've got on my wall. They're all the things that keep you focused.
What's your favourite tree? Give me a favourite tree.
Oh, it's a pine tree all day long. Douglas fir, easy.
Same. All day long. So how do you handle the growth without diluting the ethos of the business? And you've obviously been on the journey for quite a while now.
You don't, and I think anybody who's telling you like that is hard. That is hard, and I think the only way you can do it is to create an environment and a framework with a team and a leadership team that understand it. That it's a push and pull. Sometimes you've got to slow down growth to put brand back, and but at the same time, is you can't be a purpose-driven brand if you're not profitable because you don't have the luxury, or you won't be able to do it for very long. So they are in harmony. They are really they're just so well connected, and it's the environment that you create in every brand to be able to have those open discussions. But as long as you make sure we're all green to our North Star, and we're trying to make sure that we do this in the right thing, we won't cut corners. Sometimes you do cut corners because there might be reasons why you need to do them for the short-term requirement. But if you've all got that long-term vision, you should hopefully have a better chance of doing it. But they do not go hand in hand. If you pull that one lever too hard, the other lever goes, and vice versa. So that's just the reality of it.
Yeah. Last couple of questions for you, Rich. What does success look like now compared to what success looked like 10, 15 years ago?
So I think 10, 15 years ago, commercial success would have been the driver, because that means you get to keep the lights on and you're still in business in the next day. So I think at that point, when I wasn't profitable, success was getting out of the red and into a positive situation to be able to do more. Now, success for me looks like as from a brand and cultural perspective. So something I'm proud of and creating a legacy. So if I'm ever not at this place, I know that the legacy lives on, not from an ego perspective, but just the vision, the culture, and that actually goes with the team that you've instilled that vision with, and that's why it's really important. So yeah, culturally and brand perspective is now that's success for me now.
We mentioned briefly before, and tell us a little bit more about it, but you went to launch in the US, right? And then Trump, tariffs, trade war, etc. You had to rewind, and that's one of your biggest regrets, having to let the team go. What does the 3-year plan at the moment? Then, if you're in the middle of a 3-year plan or about to start a new year plan,
We're in the middle of a 3-year plan. Great example. Yeah.
okay. And what does that look like when it comes kind of global, UK, Europe, etc., etc.?
So UK and Europe is our focus now. We'd already had parts of Europe as our focus and the US, but now when you remove the US and the millions and the time that we'd invested in that, and we were literally just seeing the fruits. So we had we had a great team out there, like a fantastic team, and Matt Little, who was our GM from the US, who I'm happy to say is brother from another mother. Absolute amazing human being, totally got what we were doing, understood it, and would be prepared to give blood, sweat, and tears for it. And that filtered into the team that we had. So that was really hard, and the UK team. But we basically had to unwind from that and basically try and plug the revenue loss commercially there, but do it in the right way. So we just basically picked back up into Europe and double down there. But we were already seeing traction. We just weren't focusing on it. So it's a quick pause and pivot for us.
What would you tell the 2012, 2011 version of yourself, knowing what you now know, if you could tell them one thing?
One thing and one thing only: understand your ego.
Love it. How do you want Passenger to be remembered in another 10 years' time, say?
So the off the cuff one would be: I want a Passenger to be remembered for fucking shit up, but doing it responsibly. If you were to put that in a kind of a more commercial PC version, I would say the PC version would be understood that we tried to be ourselves and authentic, and we changed the game not because we tried to change the game, not because we're any better. We were naive.
Just a bunch of quick fire questions to finish up. So first thing that comes into your head, what is an entrepreneur?
Oh, do you know what? I really don't like that word. No, I talk about this a lot. And the reason I don't like the word entrepreneur, because it says it's about ego, it's about yourself. So an entrepreneur is a connector of dots,
Okay,
a
nice.
hustler as such.
Yeah. What does this country need to do, UK, to get more startups?
You need to incentivize the risk takers because most of them fail. So whether that is a founder looking to do something or investors to help support them, they need to incentivize them to take a risk. And then they should probably be incentivized to take more responsible risks so that it's not just about commercial return. But without that, it's going to be a very difficult position. As an example, Passenger wouldn't be here without investment from the right people at the right times. Like that is intrinsic to the success of Passenger, and it was a huge risk for them.
What is a scale-up business for you?
Oh, that's a really good question. For me, has to be brand led. So I actually think when I brought in the commercial team in the business, it would be the perfect example. Small team, revenue driving, not profitable yet, but man, did it have a great brand and a great story. And you can go, I can bring in my experience and understanding of a commercial world to scale that up and make it a successful commercial business off the back of the hard work.
I haven't had an answer like that. I think that's a great answer. Why, and again, coming back to why you were looking at the US, maybe, why is the USA better at producing scale-ups, unicorn businesses than the UK? What have they got that we haven't got?
Probably a lot more of a customer base to tap into. So this is how I would look at it. So pre-Brexit, you had the UK and Europe. You could say that was the equivalent of the US, although they might speak the same language. Your operational capacity to one, reach a new customer, and two, distribute to them was big. The US, although they speak the same language, it is like having 52 different countries in there. So they have such a big market that you can have a distribution center or an office that you can tap into all that network quite conveniently. When we had Europe, it was very similar. So that I would say is the difference. Now we're obviously an individual country. We only have a small market, so everything outside of that adds complexity and cost.
finishing up, Rich, what founder do you admire the most? And that can be somebody like from back in the day, or that could be a founder now that people haven't heard about.
Oh, it's a great question. So I'm going to say Simon Sinek as a founder, because he's founded various businesses purely for the fact that his just his view on how business and culture and performance are set. And obviously you have people like Yvon Chouinard from Patagonia who paved the way, I think, for progressive, positive businesses to be cultural and to be cultural led, so to say.
Yeah, nice. I know Simon's done a lot of stuff with Virgin, funny enough. I know you said you did a talk for Virgin recently, and I know they've had Simon on a number of times as well, so in good company. You don't have to answer this one now, but anyone you think would be in your network that you think would be a great guest for the show, that people haven't heard their story necessarily, or they don't hear the story very often, let us know.
I can't think of anyone right now, but I know for a fact I've got some gold who, when I chat to them, I'm just like, fuck me, you're inspiring. I'm just like, I want to hear more. Tell me more. There are some brilliant people. Yeah, there are some really great people out there. I would say Tom from Finisterre, actually. He's had some difficulties in life as well, and so we share a similar journey, but he's a great human being and doing a great job and flying the purpose flag. So he's a good person, and I always enjoy his company.
Yeah, nice. Well, look, Rich, thank you so much. Been wanting to chat to you for a while now. So many people name check the brand, and you're on a super interesting journey. Obviously, it's not been easy. If it'd been easy, everyone would be doing it right. But it's super inspiring to hear, and I know our audience is going to really enjoy listening to your story. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
If this conversation resonated with you, don't just sit there, act on it. Make sure you follow or subscribe for more game-changing conversations, and remember, the only thing standing between you and your business breakthrough is the decision to screw it and just do it.